A woman tried to break into my car yesterday to rescue my dog from 60-degree weather. Anyone else have stories of idiotic vigilantes? My family had a Staffordshire Bull Terrier when I was young called Bert. Bert used to love dangling and tugging on tree branches and would spend up to 20 minutes just growling and dangling off a branch. Anyway, one day the police arrived and accused us of hanging a dog. My mom hadn't got a clue what was going on for a while until she realized, Bert. So she took the officer to the field where the dog was dangling and then shouted him. He came bounding over, and when told to get the tree he sprinted back to attack the branch. The policeman just laughed and apologized. I still have no idea why someone would look at a dog which was supposedly being hanged and just ring the police instead of going and helping the dog. Very poor vigilantes in the UK. I feel kinda bad for Bert, though. Oh yeah, I got me the biggest stick ever. This is gonna get me all the bitches. Why won't the stick move? Well, to start off, I used to volunteer quite a bit at my local humane society. While volunteering one day, someone came in to drop off a large male boxer with a large tumor hanging from his groin, several smaller tumors on his body, giant pus-filled abscesses between his toes, and patches of fur missing due to what I later found out was a thyroid problem. Also, he was severely overweight and looked like he hadn't seen the outside of a kennel in years. The HS worker took one look at the dog after sign-in and decided he should be put down in a few days. I've always had a soft spot for large, Galloati dogs, so I figured I'd foster him until I could find a rescue or vet charitable enough to help him. So, I took him home. And that spurred 3 whole weeks of ridicule, which is how long it took me to find a vet who would treat him, from countless passerbys who shouted profanity, insults, and even racist remarks hurled at me just for trying to walk him. Even though I was clearly wearing a HS volunteer badge. Now, I understand why people would assume that this animal was being abused/neglected, but the amount of verbal abuse I endured was almost unbearable. Every time I put his leash on, I had to mentally prepare myself for confrontation, and hope that it didn't become physical, because the sight of this dog made people seriously pissed. I heard, "Take care of that dog, you stupid bitch," yelled at me from quite a few cars, got honked at incessantly in my favorites, "Why don't you people ever take your dogs to the vet?" And of course, "Stupid nigger, hope you go to jail." There was only one time where one of the hecklers actually stopped telling me how terrible I was to listen to my side of the story. And after I told it, they questioned the validity of my volunteer badge and wouldn't take my story as truth until many of the people at the dog park confirmed it. I took a lot of abuse just for helping that dog, but it was worth it. I eventually adopted him and he gave me 5 of the best years of my life. Miss you, Brock. I once loaded my groceries and my son, who was about 2, into my car, locked the car and walked 10 feet to put the cart up. This woman ran out of nowhere screaming that I had abandoned my son in the car to go shopping and called the police on her cell phone. I said, I am right here putting up the cart, not even walking in the direction of the store." She said she knew what I was up to. I just calmly got in my car and drove off. Good thing you drove off. I had a more or less similar situation, and I didn't drive off. Was at Walmart, and girlfriend and I were arguing. Okay, we were screaming at each other in the car. She moves to get out of the car, and I say something along the lines of "Stop. This is dumb. It's not worth losing you over," and gave her a hug. Some puts with bad eyesight saw it and thought I punched her. He calls his 2 buddies in the store, and tells them his version. They come out just as the cops get there. I tell my side, she tells the same story, and these 3 tell their fake story. I went to jail for the night, and couldn't go home for a week because I had given my girlfriend a hug in public. When the case went to court, the DA took one look at the evidence, then called the cop a goddamn time-wasting moron that couldn't be pissed to look at the tape, and threw the case out. The cop hadn't even bothered to look at the security camera. There was a fire ban in our area that I didn't know about, so when I fired up the grill, my neighbor called the cops on me. When I asked her, "Why did you call the police instead of just warning me?" her response was quite literally, "Because I didn't want you to get a ticket." Dumbest thing I ever heard come out of someone's mouth. Luckily the police officer was cool and just made me put the fire out instead of giving me the ticket. When I asked her, "Why did you call the police instead of just warning me?" her response was quite literally, "Because I didn't want you to get a ticket." Dumbest thing I ever heard come out of someone's mouth. She obviously wanted you to get a ticket. Throw a Molotov cocktail through her window and then say, "I just didn't want anyone to throw a Molotov cocktail through your window." When I was 15, I was vacationing with my family near the Ocean City Boardwalk. For those who don't know, it's basically a mile or two of stores, restaurants, and arcades positioned on a wooden walkway near the beach. Anyway, one day I'm on the boardwalk by myself, going to arcades, enjoying myself, when I accidentally drop my driver's permit down the cracks of the boardwalk. Not wanting to lose it, I head on down below the boardwalk. It's about 3 feet above the beach and really easy to get under, and retrieved my card. As I exited, there was this guy standing near where I came out, and accused me of stealing someone's credit card. I told him it was my driver's permit, showed it to him, and walked off. Cue to about an hour later when I'm back at the rental house, when the police knock on the door. They told me they were called about someone stealing a credit card. I explained the story, showed them my permit, and they laughed and walked off. Apparently, the guy followed me for another 30 minutes on the boardwalk, a 15-year-old, through arcades, and then half a mile back to the house. Just so he could call the cops on me. It both pissed me off to no ends, and creeped me out knowing someone could stalk me that long without me noticing. TLDR, guy thinks I stole a credit card when I was retrieving my driver's permit. I show him the permit. He apparently stalks me for a good while, follows me back to my house, and calls the cops on me. Edited because I queued a queue. I was wandering around a sporting goods store the other day. I'm 26, and apparently I look shifty. A very obvious undercover store security guy was following me around. So I started looking at gun holsters. I need a new one, and was there for about half an hour when I realized what he was doing. I walked to the other side of the store. He followed. I weaved in and out of shelves until he lost me, then circled around behind him and looked at stuff next to him. He saw me and sort of jumped. I pretended not to notice, and then retreated a distance to continue watching me. Long story slightly shorter, I spent the next hour just making him follow me around the place for the hell of it. Then I lost him on the second floor, waited to make sure he saw me from the balcony, waved, and left. Our old horse died a few years ago. Obviously you can't just bury a 17-hand horse in the backyard, so we called up the renderer. He said he'd be around in about 3 days to pick her up. It's only one guy who serves the tri-state area, so 3 days is quick. Since she laid down in the pasture to die, we simply covered her with a piece of tarp and used some stones to weigh it down. A few hours later, our neighbor came over yelling at us that our dead horse smelled atrocious and was going to give her children nightmares. It was October, she wasn't rotting in 100+ degree weather. And where she had died was in a place that you could only see from our side of the road. The lady lived 2 houses away across the street. How the hell were her kids going to see it unless they were on our property? She called the police. Turns out, it was the sheriff, or whatever his title is, that answered. After confirming that she did not smell, he asked if we had called the renderer. We told him that he'd pick her up in 3 days. He turned to the lady and said sometimes it takes 3 weeks. Go home. When I was a kid, I saw a woman walk up to a station wagon with the window cracked open at a shopping center. She cooed at the dog, opened the unlocked door, then let the dog out. I thought she was the owner, but she went one way and the dog ran the other. Yay, I just saved this dog from the car, better let it run through busy roads now. I'm such a good person. I worked at an ice cream parlor a while back and we made our own ice cream, waffle cones, chocolates, fudge, etc. Well, one day I'm making the waffle cones and I wasn't being careful. When I went to take a cone off the iron, the top of the iron fell on the top of my hand. I got a pretty good waffle-shaped burn from it. No biggie, I got it taken care of, but I had a pretty good waffle pattern on my hand for a long time after that. Probably a month after it happened, I had a couple come in who saw my burn while I was giving them their ice cream. They were super concerned about it and I told them it was nothing, just carelessness on my part. They wouldn't let it go and were convinced that I was being abused in the workplace. They wrote out all sorts of information for me, an abuse hotline, website, etc., and gave it to me before they left. They came in a couple more times and checked up on me. Just strange that they wouldn't accept that the burn wasn't intentional.